All right, let's connect the model to the view. And in order to do that, we're going to have to add some more to our view. So let's start by adding another layer of elements that's on top of what we already have. We'll call that the disk layer. Let's make a variable to reference it. And in order to reference it, first it needs to exist in HTML. So let's just say div id equals, and then we'll just call it disk layer. Then inside of the onload function, right where we reference the black background, we'll do the same thing with the disk layer. And let's actually just copy and paste this and change the name and the reference. So this is disk layer, and it's the ID disk layer, just to keep things nice and consistent. Okay, so in order to tie the model to the view, we just need to have a function that can look at this information here and redraw what we see on the screen according to what's actually in the model, what's actually in this data. So let's create a function. We'll call it drawDisks. And we know the model has 8 rows, each with 8 columns. So let's do the exact same thing we did when we were drawing the squares. We'll have a loop that goes over each row, and inside of each row we'll have a loop that goes over each column of that row. Oh, by the way, before we redraw anything, let's clear out all of the existing disks. So we can just say disk layer.innerHTML equals nothing. That way we won't have any duplicate things being drawn. So it clears everything out and then redraws according to exactly what's in the model. So once we've got a current row and a current column to deal with inside of these repeating loops, we just need to determine whether that particular position needs to have a chip. So an easy way to do that is to look inside the model called disks at the particular row and column and check if its value is a 0. If it's a 0, we don't have to draw anything. So let's just do that real quick. Let's save a reference to the value in that cell. So value equals disks at spot row column. And then we can say if value is equal to 0, basically do nothing, right? So we can just skip over that case and say else. Okay, and inside of the else case, that means we need to draw a disk or a chip or a piece, whatever you want to call it. So let's do the same thing basically we did here, where we created the green square element. We're going to rename it to be a chip or a disk. Let's call it disk. And rename all of these. Okay, and we also need to append this chip or disk div that we just created to the disk layer. So let's do that real quick. Disk layer.append child disk. Okay, I just started second guessing my spelling of the word disk here, and I realized, I looked it up, and apparently D-I-S-K is how Americans usually spell it, and D-I-S-C is the correct way British people spell it. So they're both fine. We'll just keep it D-I-S-C because I've already used it several times. Okay, so we append that to the disk layer, but we're going to have to change some of these attributes. It's still absolute positioning, that's good. The width and the height, they could be smaller if we wanted the disk to be a little bit inside of the squares, but we'll wait till later to fix that. Background color, of course, is going to need to change. In fact, it's going to be dependent on whether it's a 1 or a 2. So that value that we were checking, whether it's a 0 or a 1 or a 2, we just say if it's a 1, that means it should be black, right? So we'll say the background of the disk is going to be black in the case where it's a 1. And in the case where it's a 2, it'll be white. So I can add another case down here. Value equals 2, background color equals white. Delete that. Okay. And if you want to make it look a little nicer, usually I try to append the element after I've set all of the attributes. Now the cool thing is the left and the top attributes are essentially going to be the same because remember they're relying on the position using the column and the row, and that's exactly what we're using inside of the data, inside of the model. So our iterators here are allowing us to position everything according to the model. So that's nice. Let's just leave those as they are for now. And let's just refresh the page and test it. Oh, the reason it didn't draw them is because I need to add that function after draw green squares. So I say draw disks. Save that, refresh, and there they are. Of course, they're not disks, so let's change that. It turns out the way to draw a circle or an oval in JavaScript is very strange. You just have to give it a border radius, which basically is like rounding off the corners. So if we say disk.style.border radius equals 10%, watch what this does. It rounds off the borders, rounds off the corners a little bit. If I increase that, so instead of 10%, it's 20%, it'll be an even rounder edge or an even rounder corner. It turns out 50% will make it a circle. So there we have it. We have our 4 disks on the board. Now, you're welcome to keep that as it is, or you could shrink them a little bit. I kind of want to make them smaller so that they're inside of these squares. So let's say cell width minus 2 for the width and height. And you'll notice that kept them aligned with the top left corner of the cell that they're in. So we could also position them from their left and their top to be whatever they already are, plus 1. And now they should be dead center. And that's not a very big gap. Let's make it even smaller. Let's say minus 4, and then make these 2. So we're starting 2 pixels from wherever it should have been. Perfect. So it appears to all be working, but just to double check, let's try changing some of these zeros to be a 2 or a 1. And then when we save that and refresh, it works. So it appears that the view is entirely dependent on the model. Now, of course, the values here are just the initial state of the grid. So when we do the control in a future video, we'll write code that edits this model dynamically. But we know that the view is drawing whatever is in the model, so it should work.